Recording. And hello. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT no government license, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is BIPCOT.org. We are also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. So everything we say here on Anarchy Among Friends is entirely hypothetical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Theoretically speaking.
Yes, but this is episode 99. You guys.
Yeah. We got to come up with a great idea for episode 100 next week.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah. Well, it can't. Whatever we do, it can't be worse than Fauci's opening day pitch. I have to bring that up because
I saw that in the first thing I thought was, or first thing I heard was Bob Euchre in my head.
Just a bit outside.
Yeah, and that, oh man, yeah, as accurate as his predictions with COVID.
Yeah.
No, I would say the pitch was probably more accurate. The only way, if his pitch had been as accurate as predictions on COVID, it would have ended up in center field.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He would have ended up throwing it backwards on accident.
Would have hit the mascot. Oh, that's a COVID death.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, and then there's those pictures of him where he's like got the mask on when he pitches, but then when he goes in the stands and is sitting immediately between two people, he takes his mask off.
Makes perfect.
See, to me, this could be the new "the floor is" meme. You guys know the floor is meme. So the umpire is, right? Or the catcher is. The catcher is.
Just throw it as
throw it total different direction.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, that'll be a good one.
Speaking of memes, Bastion Institute totally shared my meme. I'm super excited about that. That was awesome.
With no watermarker on it, though.
I know, the one that I posted on my personal page without a watermark rather than the actual page, which has a watermark on it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
What I hate is when pages steal my memes and put their own fucking watermark on them.
Oh, yeah. I hate
that.
Looking at you, Positive Anarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, with the reasons why I'm an anarchist meme. You guys have all seen that one with because I'm a miserable misanthrope.
Yeah. The girl walking away. Yeah.
No, that's the why I don't vote.
Oh, why I don't vote one. Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry. You got so many fantastic memes that I confused them.
And nobody knows. Like, it's weird. Like, nobody fucking knows that I'm the one who makes all these fucking memes. Oh, well, whatever. I don't care.
Phantom memer.
I don't do it for recognition. I do it to spread the message. So, if people want to steal my shit, fine. Just don't fucking pretend you made it. That's all.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I that meme that I posted about the Mandalorians and the blue, using a blue helmet to strain noodles. I may have recently acquired an old Vietnam era helmet that I painted blue.
Nice.
Just blend in. They'll never notice.
Right?
Yeah.
Gotta make some. What's the saying? They make great flower pots because the excess water drains away.
Yep.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to come back in just a minute. All right, my dad's trying to get a hold of me.
You don't like us? It's okay. We get it.
Yeah. Well, I gotta call my dad back right quick.
I chased her away. That's what happened.
I'll be right back, guys.
All right.
All right. Well, I wanted to open with a particular article, but we have to wait till Jerica gets back because she's gonna lose her shit laughing at it. It's about the Space Force having a horse.
What? Space Horse.
No, like literally, the Space Force has a horse.
Is his
Of
name
course.
Mr. Ed by
Of
chance?
course. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna bury the lead on that one. Let's
Oh.
let's get into some equally ridiculous. You remember back in, oh, where was it? It was in the last fall. I want to say it was last fall, where we talked about the guy in Michigan that underpaid his property tax by $8.41.
Yeah.
And the county took his house and then sold the house, and then the county kept the like $25,000 profit that it got for selling the house. Right. So, you know, the homeowner, he sued, and yeah, I'll just get in the article. I guess it says when a Michigan retiree accidentally underpaid his county property tax by $8.41, he lost his house and all of the equity in it. Oakland County seized the property and sold it, ultimately pocketing about $25,000 beyond the tax debt owed. Yuri Raffelli, the homeowner, is just one of many people to be victimized by Michigan's overly aggressive tax asset forfeiture laws in recent years. But the absurdity of his case earned national media attention. And on Friday, this is like last week, the Michigan Supreme Court issued a near unanimous rebuke to Oakland County and the legal regime that allows governments in Michigan to profit off unpaid tax bills in that way. Well,
Nice.
Oakland County was allowed to seize Raffaelli's property to satisfy the tax debt and, quote, any interest, penalties, and fees associated with it. Justice Brian Zara wrote in the opinion that accommodated the 6-1 decision, the county is not entitled to the full value of the home. Quote, defendants were required to return the surplus proceeds to plaintiffs, and defendants' failures to do so constituted a government taking under the Michigan Constitution, entitling plaintiffs to just compensation. Exactly how much compensation Raffaelli is due will be hashed out by a lower court. Still, Friday's decision is a momentous victory for homeowners in Michigan, according to the Pacific Legal Foundation, the nonprofit firm which represented Raffaelli.
So they're saying they are allowed to take it, but they can only keep proceeds that total what was actually owed.
Yes.
Yep.
Owed, quote unquote.
Yeah, owed taxes, and then owed accompanied fees, court costs, lawyers, etc.
So chances are that what they'll now do in light of that is start charging enormous amounts of fees for doing it, so that they can keep as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, a county that will seize a home over $8.41 is a county that will not stop seizing homes over $8.41.
Right. And my question is did they ever actually notify the guy that he underpaid his stuff? Taxation being theft aside.
They told him the wrong number initially, I think.
Yeah, that's what it is. Is he got information, it was the wrong number, and then he wrote a check, and then it was like actually a little bit more, and then it was unpaid, and then like there was the county says there was a letter sent. Raffaelli said there wasn't he never received a letter, and then they seized it.
Which means that the letter didn't even have to be sent certified.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean,
no, this is the number I really want to put out there, because this is the number that's going to make Andrew's head blow. As Reason reported last year, Raffaelli was just one victim of a 1999 state law that gave county treasurers the power to seize properties with unpaid taxes, settle the debt, and keep the remainder for their budgets. Some of them use this law quite effectively. Wayne County, for example, has funneled more than $382 million in delinquent tax surpluses into the general fund since 2012.
Million?
Million?
382 million
In stolen funds.
property and stolen profit from the sales of these houses.
Oh my God! It's one county.
Yes,
one.
That is one county. 382 million in delinquent tax surpluses into the general fund since 2012.
If that's one county, I wonder. I mean, how many billions have been funneled statewide that way?
Probably quite a bit. I mean, think about that's 382. That's almost $400 million that are the profit. So the over and above what was owed from them seizing,
yes,
and then selling people's property.
Right. Yeah. So, D, just to catch you up real quick, you remember that article we covered about the guy in Michigan who lost his house over the $8.41 tax bill?
Yeah, and I saw there was a recent article about that, right?
Yeah. So, Pacific Legal Foundation, who is absolutely fantastic, sued on his behalf. Like he's never going to get his house back or anything like that. But the profit of the sales, right? The county kept that, right? Under like you think that
beyond what he owed them in tax, which should be fucking illegal.
Yeah, tax and fees and fines, right? So the county kept that extra money. So the court said you done all fucked up, and as recent report last year, Raphael was just one victim of a 1999 state law that gave county treasurers the power to seize properties with unpaid taxes, settle the debt, and keep the remainder for their own budgets. Some of them have used this law quite effectively. Wayne County, for example, has funneled more than $382 million in delinquent tax surpluses into its general fund since 2012.
And how the fuck do they get away with that? Like, that is so fucking wrong, because they're the ones who have the power to decide that you owe them fucking money. Yes. And then they were able to give themselves the power to fucking take your shit and keep what what wasn't on their original bill to begin with.
Yes.
Fuck you. That's not okay.
Oakland County, where Raffaelli's house was located, has hundreds of millions of dollars in its delinquent tax revolving fund. Tax asset forfeiture has been particularly precarious in Detroit. Rather than helping to more quickly get vacant homes back on the market, it has contributed to an increase in the number of abandoned and blighted properties, according to a report by the Quicken Loans Community Fund. Quote, most Detroit homes that have been tax foreclosed do not return to productive use. Hold on. The process has created a perverse incentive for local governments to seize homes rather than allow homeowners to pay off tax debts.
What a crazy thought.
When Cass County...
Who could have seen that coming?
When Cass County was going through the process of seizing a multi-million-dollar home over a small unpaid tax bill, the county treasurer and other officials exchanged emails joking about using the lakefront property for cookouts.
Oh, Jesus.
Pure theft. Plain and simple.
Yeah. One more time. Okay, one more paragraph, and then when Oakland County had to defend its forfeiture of Raffaelli's property to the state Supreme Court last year, county attorneys argued that keeping the proceeds from tax forfeiture was a punitive measure necessary to compel property tax payments from residents. During oral arguments, one county attorney compared the process to telling his kids, quote, if you don't pick up your stuff, it's mine.
Yeah. Yeah, and then keeping it forever as a fucking warning to your other kids. Yeah.
I mean, that's the insane thing is these people really honestly think like that. I mean, they think as though government is your parent and therefore you're just the unruly children. You're not people
That
with
condescending
property rights.
bullshit is like, that is probably the crux of my entire fucking beef with government. That's the whole reason I have such a fucking problem with authority. You are not my fucking parents. My parents don't even exercise that kind of authority over me anymore. Like, I'm not a little fucking kid and you are not my parent. Holy shit. Yeah. You're no more of a fucking adult than I am. And I would argue that you're less of an adult than I am. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Yeah. Lower courts accepted this grotesquely paternalistic argument, but the state Supreme Court soundly rejected it. Because the homes seized for unpaid property tax bills have not been connected to criminal activity, there is no grounds for the county to claim that the action is a forfeiture. Simply failing to pay your taxes, Zarha, that's the judge, notes is not a criminal act allowing forfeiture. Quote, the remedy for a government taking is just compensation for the value of the property taken. Therefore, plaintiffs are entitled to the value of the surplus proceeds as just compensation.
Yes.
I wonder how that.
I mean, the whole thing is wrong to begin with, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I wonder if that backdates to all of the other people that have been raped and pillaged by the state or by the counties.
I think they should sue under that ruling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they should all take them all to court and bankrupt the living shit out of them for all of the money that they owe them and teach them a punitive lesson.
Yes. Absolutely. It's a punitive measure to keep government in its fucking place.
Jesus. And then people wonder why we have incidents like we did years ago in Viroqua where the guy set up with like a bunker in his house. Like he fortified his house because he knew that they were coming to take it for unpaid taxes and engaged in like a 2-hour-long firefight with the La Crosse County SWAT team got sent down to Vernon County with their Bearcat to do it. And that dude had fucking API rounds. It was beautiful. Like he took chunks out of that Bearcat shooting it.
Now we know why he couldn't afford his taxes.
Yeah, because he was buying all that ammunition. If you've never bought API rounds, they are not cheap. They are very expensive.
Yes.
But yeah, like he like turned the Bearcat halfway into Swiss cheese. It took them hours and hours to finally subdue him. And he finally surrendered and stuff. But I mean, like, that's why people do that. Yeah. Because you're taking my home because you say that even though it's my property, I still have to pay you rent. And if I don't, you're going to kick me out.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. It's just, don't worry, it's yours.
It's bullshit.
Oh, it's your property. Yeah. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. Oh my God. Like, oh, we're just going to go ahead and take your house over $8. And by the way, all of the money that we made off of selling it, yeah, we're going to keep that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Well, we're not only going to keep it, we're going to be like totally pandering and treat you like a child over it.
Yeah. We're not only going to keep it, we're going to use it to buy votes so that we stay in power to take more people's shit.
Yeah. Oh, and we're going to have picnics at your house after we seize it.
Yeah, we're gonna have
I'm sorry. It's not your house anymore. It's our house.
It was never your house. I mean, let's just be honest.
But don't worry though. America is not a fascist empire.
No, not at all.
This has absolutely bears no similarities whatsoever to the Reichstag decree that said that they could just seize property and then just had to pay you for it. It's completely different than that. It's
totally different.
Of course, because they don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the same thing at all.
Yeah. Just like eminent domain is totally not the same thing at all. And civil asset forfeiture and all the ways that they fucking take your shit after they've already taxed you to death on all of it. They just take what's fucking left and fuck you.
One of my absolute favorite eminent domain stories came out of New Jersey when Trump wanted to kick an old woman out of her house to build his hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And she fought and beat his ass in court. It was great.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
The funny thing,
okay.
I mean,
Trump is different.
Yeah. The craziest thing is, in communist freaking China, there are anchor houses. They call them as anchor houses, where because in communist China you have more property rights than the United States to your own property.
There's the there's the famous photo out of China where it's like this like 6-lane highway, just and it's going down the road, and then it splits in half around this like
one house.
Yeah, there's one house and it's like less than 2,000 square feet, tiny ass house, and it splits around the house and then goes back into a 6-lane highway.
Nice.
Yep. There's also that apartment building that had to be built where one side of it is like way in compared to the rest, and it like wraps around because there's a house in the way that it's got to go around because they can't force you to sell your house in communist China. They can't force you to sell your house, but in Soviet America,
that's some up level stuff right there.
Yeah.
Good God.
But speaking of,
but it's a free country, and if you don't like it, leave.
If you can leave,
without paying expatriation taxes, which you're then, if you expatriate and you have like significant holdings in the U.S., you have to fucking sell it if you want to surrender your citizenship. Like foreign people who aren't citizens of the U.S. can own property here. But if you were a citizen and you renounce your citizenship, you can no longer own property here. You have to sell it, and you have to pay this massive expatriation tax on the value of everything that you fucking sold.
In addition to the $3,000 worth of fees that you have to pay.
I think it's up. I think it's like $5,400 now.
But
yeah, that's right. It did go up.
Jeez.
But you're free to leave.
Yeah. No, you're fucking not.
Yeah. I love when
it's
those
an open
guys...
air. It's an open air prison yard, just like all the other fucking open air prison yards on this planet.
Love it or leave it.
Yeah, I love when they're like, "Oh, well, I'll help you pack," and it's like, "No, man, I need you to help me raise funds so I can pay for it."
Start to go fund me. I'll look into it. But speaking of that, we talked about this a couple episodes ago about the girl who was jailed for not doing her schoolwork at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Judge denied release of teen girl who was jailed for not doing her homework. 15-year-old black girl who has been incarcerated in Michigan since mid-May after she failed to do her online schoolwork won't be returning home, a judge decided. Oakland County, that's Detroit.
Hey!
Oakland County Judge Mary Ellen Brennan determined that the girl had been benefiting from a residential treatment program at the Juvenile Detention Center, but is not yet ready to be with her mother.
What?
She has almost won the victory over herself and loves Big Brother, so we need to hold on to her.
There's a quote at the end of this article. The girl who is being identified only by her middle name, Grace, was the subject of a report published last week. Politicians, community activists expressing outrage, blah, blah, blah. During the 3-hour proceeding, Brennan told Grace that it is in her best interest to stay in the program after all of the progress she has been making. Quote, "Give yourself a chance to follow through and finish something," Brennan said. "The right thing is for you and your mom to be separated for right now."
Yeah, you can't be around your mom because we need to finish turning you into a fucking mindless drone. Sorry, kid.
Grace, however, told the judge that she wanted to go home. Quote, "I miss my mom. I can control myself. I can be obedient."
2 + 2 is 5 or 12 or whatever you say it is. End quote.
Yeah.
More or less. So
I can't be obedient, girl. I can't fucking be obedient.
Hell no.
That doesn't make me an unsuccessful human being, for fuck's sake. So here's the thing. She could have been showing up at school and refusing to do any fucking work. And there
would have
wouldn't
been like
be any...
detention or suspension. Like they
Maybe.
literally, like she would have been suspended. Like her
Or
punishment.
she could just like put her name on shit and hand it in and get Fs. I mean, they can't
Yeah.
fucking do anything to you for getting Fs.
Yeah, like
Right.
even if she went to school and didn't do the work,
Right.
her punishment would have been being told you can't go to school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So her punishment for not going to school and not doing work is you have to now go to school.
In jail.
In jail.
In jail.
You have to go to
In jail.
jail.
Yeah.
Well, not that I think there's a big
yeah.
difference between public school and jail, but
No, there
No.
really isn't.
Another a quote from the judge that this one angered me. It said, "My role is to make decisions that are in this young lady's best interest. Period. I took an oath that I would not be swayed by public clamor and fear of criticism."
I fucking hate that. It's my responsibility to make this decision for you. Like, I fucking hate that
Right.
mentality.
You don't
really
have
fucking
any
hate it.
autonomy because the state says, "Oh, well, if you make the wrong decision that we don't like, we're just
Yeah.
going to turn around and make what we think is the right decision for you.
and
Yeah.
force
And if you don't abide by it, then we're gonna cage you." And in this case, they already caged her, and then they're gonna make her do it anyway. Like,
That's no different than how authoritarian most parents are, with caging being grounding or whatever, right? A lot of people really dominate, like over dominate their children like that. And that's where these fucking government people come from.
right.
They
Yep.
come from those fucking upbringings.
Well,
That's why
yeah,
I still think that the most rebellious and most impactful thing that we can do is to raise free and free thinking children.
Oh yeah,
Not
definitely.
only that, it's not only to raise them, but you have to even in your own home create a culture that values freedom and liberty.
Right,
and-
exactly.
And
That's what I
personal
meant by
responsibility
raising
and
free children.
self autonomy and
Yeah.
because school is the opposite of that.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
takes a lot more control and effort for a parent to handle their child in a way that's respectful of the child's humanity and individuality and their autonomy than it is to just dominate the shit out of them and make things easier on yourself.
Especially when the parent grew up learning
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
the domination and the
Yep.
punitive punishment and
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
There's
look at the number of times that you hear from the guys who are like, "Oh, those people protesting against the police and those people who are rebelling against authority, they just need to go out and get their own switch like I did. That's how I was raised and
They didn't get
and
spanked
look at-
enough as a child.
yeah,
Look
and
at
look
them
at
now.
look at how great I turned out." And it's like, yeah, you're super obedient and bow immediately to violent authority. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is absolutely fantastic.
And
You
on the
should
other
definitely
hand,
drop
you
that.
now have the compulsion to dominate other fucking people. You are continuing this cycle of psychological fucking abuse and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, and you see that, or you see might as making right because that's
Yep.
how you were raised, where
Yeah,
the might
it's
make
the-
right.
it's
Yep.
it's the monkeys and the banana idiom. Idiom's the right word, but right there's the experiment about the monkeys put four or
Right.
five monkeys or four monkeys in a cage, and then you drop a banana down from a string, and the monkeys try to get the banana, and then cold water comes on everybody, and nobody gets the banana. And
Right.
then after a few times, the banana comes down, and the monkeys go, "Oh no!"
And they
comes
don't
the
try to
cold water,
climb
and
the
they
ladder
don't try
anymore.
to climb the ladder anymore. And then you introduce a new monkey, and the
Who's
banana
never
comes
been
down.
hosed
Yeah,
down.
who's never been hosed down. The new monkey tries to climb the ladder when the banana comes down. The other monkeys beat the shit out of it because they don't want to get sprayed with water.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you repeat the process until no monkey that has ever been sprayed is in the cage. And when the
Yep.
banana comes down, they won't get it because they don't want to get the shit beat out of them.
Because
none
they've
of
been
them
socially conditioned. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
they don't even
exact same thing.
understand why it's bad anymore. They just know, well, everyone else said it was bad, so then that's what. Yeah, and it's the whole panopticon idea of society. That's
Yep.
what it amounts to, and that's where we're at. And what we've hit at this point, and we're seeing it come home to roost again and again And again, where...
And like anarchists, we're the little like jittery fucking monkey sitting in the corner with patches of fur ripped out all over, still trying to tell all the other monkeys, you can reach them for the fucking banana, you guys. And
just endure the cold water for a second and you can get a banana. I don't understand why no one's doing that.
Yeah.
The other monkeys, how dare you, you son of a...
Yeah.
And there's the other monkey. We just have to vote for warmer water.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Lower water pressure. We have to vote for lower water pressure.
We can just get the right scientist in charge of the experiment.
Yes.
Let's go to Stanford for that one. That'll work.
UC Berkeley.
Oh, God. Jesus fucking Christ.
Kindler, gentler scientist.
That entire fucking college campus should be burned to the ground.
It's so bad.
No, I'm not saying somebody should burn it to the ground. I'm saying that
Brandenburg, Ohio.
If it catches on fire, we should all make s'mores. That's what I'm saying.
What we're saying is that we hope that one day lightning just happens to strike all of the buildings on the campus simultaneously and set them on fire.
God, if
in the middle of a drought.
Yes.
If we had a thunderstorm here, that would be awesome.
I suppose rain would probably be helpful.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, there's a fire in Southern California in Riverside. It's the Karen fire.
Yeah.
The Karen fire, really?
Yep.
Yeah, because it started off of like Karen Road, so they call it the Karen fire.
Karen.
Karen Lane or something like that. They're named after like the street that they start by or whatever.
It's the fire that also wants to see the manager.
Yes. Yes. And it's the fire that inevitably 2020 was gonna fucking have.
Yeah.
2020 is just the fucking year of the Karen.
If you listen closely, the flames are going, you should wear a mask.
We were joking about earlier, Jerica, about somebody has to do a Chinese calendar with Karens.
Right. The year of the Karen. Yeah. We could do the year of all the fucking internet personalities, right? Like on the Chinese calendar, but 2020 has to be one of the year of the Karens. Definitely.
Start the calendar on 2020 and work forward.
Yeah.
Next year's year Kyle.
Yeah.
I don't have a Karen related article, you guys.
Well, I don't know. If Trump gets reelected, next year is going to be the year of the fucking crying liberal. Oh my God. Do you remember the Trump derangement syndrome? All the fucking videos of these people freaking out.
Yeah, just
screaming in the sky.
Yeah.
Yes.
They actually had an event in DC, Scream at the Sky.
Yeah. There was one of a girl like sniveling, oh my God, I want to kill myself. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Blah, 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 blah. And I was just like,
if Trump getting elected was the worst thing that's ever happened to you, you have lived a very nice life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the actual definition of privilege.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh, my dad got me a Porsche, not a Ferrari. This is like literally the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Right?
Just. Oh my God.
So perfect segue into a totally unrelated article. Trump consults Bush torture lawyer on how to skirt law and rule by decree.
Yeah. This is my other beef with government. There isn't a lawyer on the planet who can make verbiage or write something so fucking specific and that it has zero fucking loopholes that some asshole can abuse. It's just not fucking possible. There's always a loophole. Always.
Yeah.
And what do we say? Be careful the power that you give them when it's your team that's in power, because next time it's the other team in power, they're going to fucking use it against you.
Yep. Okay, so The Trump administration has been consulting the former government lawyer who wrote the legal justification for waterboarding on how the president might try to rule by decree. John Yoo.
God Emperor Trump.
Yeah, John Yoo told Access he had been talking to the White House officials about his view that a recent Supreme Court ruling on immigration would allow Trump to issue executive orders that flout federal law. In the Fox News Sunday interview, Trump declared that he would try to use that interpretation to try and force through decrees on healthcare, immigration, and, quote, various other plans over the coming months. Constitutional scholars and human rights activists have also pointed to the deployment of paramilitary federal forces against protesters in Portland as a sign that Trump is ready to use his broad interpretation of presidential powers as a means to suppress basic constitutional rights.
Yeah, and the fact that he's doing it now tells me he doesn't think he's going to win this election.
Yeah, quote, "This is how it begins," Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard constitutional law professor, wrote on Twitter. Quote, "This dictatorial hunger for power is insatiable. If ever there was a time for peaceful civil disobedience, that time is upon us."
You know, it's awful ironic that all of a sudden now that Trump is using all of this, all of these leftists are complaining, because I seem to remember when the last guy was around, they were all totally cool with him ruling by the stroke of the pen and encouraged it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
He said something along the lines of taking matters into his own hands.
I believe the quote was, I have a pen and a phone.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
So,
Isn't it funny that the bludgeon used by you against your opponents yesterday becomes the bat used against you today?
Yes.
It's almost like giving all of these psychopaths a bunch of fucking power is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yu was notorious for a legal memo he drafted in August 2002 when he was the Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel. It stated, and I quote, "Necessity or self-defense may justify interrogation methods that might violate the criminal prohibition against torture." Memos drafted by you were used to justify waterboarding and other forms of torture on terrorism suspects and CIA black sites around the world. In the book titled Defender in Chief, due to be published next week, Yu argues that Trump is restoring the powers of the presidency envisioned by the framers of the U.S. Constitution.
I call shenanigans.
I call a lot more than shenanigans.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read that. I'm gonna read that again. Yu argues that Trump is restoring the powers of the presidency envisioned by the framers of the U.S. Constitution.
Bullshit. Maybe this guy hasn't read the same writings by the founders that I fucking read, which is almost all of them. So he probably just hasn't read any of them. But what he just said could not be further from the fucking truth.
He was supposed to be basically a figurehead.
Yeah. The guys who wrote in checks and balances strategically for a specific reason and wrote hundreds and hundreds of publications about how one person having too much power was a very, very bad idea. Yes, they totally intended for one person to be able to write laws by just declaration. That's absolutely what they
The people who just fought a bloody war to win their independence from an autocratic king, they intended for a president to have this much power. No, I'm sorry. I'm not fucking buying it.
Restoring the powers of the presidency envisioned by the framers of the U.S. Constitution.
Nope.
Somebody should start calling him Squealer in Chief, because that's who he reminds me of, is Squealer from Animal Farm. Like, no, black is white, white is black. You know, no, it's this is totally what we've always meant.
Yeah.
In the June article in the National Review, he wrote that the Supreme Court decision that blocked Trump's attempt to repeal Barack Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, known as DACA, and established by the executive order, meant Trump could do the same thing to achieve his policy goals. DACA suspended deportations of undocumented immigrants who arrived in the U.S. as children. As an example of what Trump might achieve in the same way, you suggested the president could declare a national right to carry firearms openly in conflict with many state laws.
Well, I mean,
as hell would never do that, but
quote, he could declare that he would not enforce federal firearms laws, you wrote, and that a new, quote, Trump permit would free any holder of state or local gun control restrictions. Hold on. Quote, even if Trump
I fucking want it so bad, but I just can't square the ethics of it.
That's exactly, okay. Quote, even if Trump knew that his scheme lacked legal authority, he could get away with it for the length of his presidency. And moreover, even if the courts declared the permit illegal, his successor would have to keep enforcing that program for another year or two.
But what's funny is if you listen to this is a classic bait and switch. Because he is talking about the right of the executive branch of government to refuse to enforce laws, which is part of checks and balances. And he's trying to conflate that with later on in what he's saying with him actively creating new restrictions on his own and declaring he's going to enforce things that are not a law.
Right.
And that is not the same thing.
No. But that's classic, like Kevin calls it talking out both sides of their mouths. I think
they're talking out both sides of something.
Yeah. Well,
he's
talking out both ends of his mouth. So this end and that end. You know what I'm saying?
Because his head's up his...
Because it's just a tube, like a long twisty tube.
Oh, I thought it meant because like his head's up his...
No. Like the other end of your mouth is an asshole.
Yeah. Constitutional scholars have rejected Yu's arguments as ignoring limits on the executive powers of the president imposed by the founders, who were determined to prevent the rise of a tyrant. Tribe called Yu's interpretation of DACA ruling indefensible. He added, quote, I fear that this lawless administration will take full advantage of the fact that judicial wheels grind slowly and that it will be difficult to keep up with the many ways Trump, aided and abetted by Bill Barr as Attorney General and Chad Wolf as acting head of Homeland Security, can usurp congressional powers and abridge fundamental rights in the immigration space in particular, but also in the matters of public health and safety.
Where was this argument with the last guy and the guy before that?
Yeah,
and the guy before that.
And the guy before that. Yeah, and the guy before that.
And all the way back. I mean,
yeah.
Where
Coolidge didn't really do anything. But...
No, Coolidge didn't really do anything.
Who?
Calvin Coolidge.
I was just joking.
Well, neither did McKinley, but
exactly. Nobody knows who Calvin Coolidge is.
I know who Calvin Coolidge is.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
That is how little he did as president intentionally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, remember when Obama was trying to ban, impose all these gun bans and things with the stroke of a pen, and one, all of the conservatives were screaming about the abuse of power and how wildly unconstitutional it was, and two, all of the leftists were going, no, you should just do it. I mean, if you have the power, you should just do it. We're in charge now.
Well, and
remember
that's the thing. Stuff like this is a reflection of the fucking political culture in this country. Statists on both sides always want their guy to have absolute fucking power to do exactly what he promised.
I have a really good meme that I made, I don't know, like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it's a red snowflake and a blue snowflake, and it says we don't care what the government does as long as our party is in charge.
Yep.
And that's exactly it too. I actually just had this conversation with a friend of mine who is a hardcore Trump humper.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, do you realize that this crap that he's pulling is just, from an ethical standpoint, is horrendous, not to mention a constitutional legal standpoint. And he's like, but it's the right thing to do. So, like,
No,
No, it's not.
that's not how this works.
Like there is no Republicans and Democrats. There is no sides.
No.
Right? They're all populists. Like
Yep.
Trump is a populist. Like his executive order he signed the other day about insulin prices. Right? Which is not gonna have any effect for like 3 to 4 years or something like that. Like he doesn't care about insulin prices. What he cares about is how people react to his pandering about insulin prices.
Yeah.
Boy.
I mean, I
Mhm.
care about insulin prices, but I don't think the government should be involved in it.
The insulin prices wouldn't be an issue if the government wasn't involved because of the stupid ass copyrights.
And I take 50 units of insulin a day.
Yeah, and and that's the thing. Like I've had that discussion with people as far as IP goes, and like if you removed IP as an issue standing in the way within the drug production market space, all of a sudden prices would just drop. If you got government the hell out of the way, you would see prices drop like a fucking stone. But instead, what they are clamoring for is a more government involvement in the problem that was caused by too much government in the first place.
People can't see,
that happens all
like
the time.
people have such a blind spot about IP enforcement being a function of government. They see these like monopolistic Leviathan corporations and they think that's a function of unfettered fucking capitalism.
No.
And it's not. That is not possible without government force enforcing IP and copyright and all of these fucking laws. It's just not possible without it.
Talking to the libertarians that are listening right now. IP laws are why you will never see a libertarian president.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's why you don't see big mega corporations standing behind Joe Jorgensen.
Right. You will never see a super PAC for libertarians because the big contributors to political campaigns all need IP laws to stay in place. Every one of them relies on that.
Because it creates artificial monopolies. Yes. It kills competition.
Creates barriers to entry.
Yep. Because competition creates a better product at a lower price.
Yep.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
if they let the damn markets. Go ahead.
Which is why things like Uber are so cheap and streaming services are so cheap.
Yeah, and continuously improving. I mean, that's the conversation I just had the other day. I brought up the fact that if you look at the clothing in the United States, right, a lot of people don't realize you cannot copyright clothing patterns. You can't. Like, legally, you cannot do that in the United States. So if I design a piece of clothing with a specific cut and blah, 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 and now that starts selling, everyone else can just copy it and there's nothing I can do about it, which is why in the clothing space, you have to focus on high quality and novelty and, you know, and hacking down your customer base.
So many fucking options.
Yeah, and it's why designs change every single season.
Yeah,
it's every season.
Yeah, and it's also why you see logos on everything, because logos are a form of branding.
Yes, and logos can be copyrighted.
Yeah,
the design of the clothing can't, but the logo can be.
Yeah, I can straight up make an exact copy of a Coach bag. As long as it doesn't have the Coach logo on it. It can be identical in every physical other way.
You could even write Coach in Sharpie. It just can't be in that specific font that they have their little leather patches that they put on their bags.
Right, you can't have the Coach print, the 2 C's. You can't do like that stuff. You can't do that, but otherwise it can be exactly the same. And yet you still see tons of people going into clothing, and you see lots of people go into clothing businesses. I mean, James May, who is from the British Top Gear and does Grand Tour on Amazon now, just launched his own clothing line. Like, that everybody goes into clothing, and you got to ask yourself if you
because
honestly
there's more
believe...
opportunity, because nobody can shut off designs or portions of the market because you can't fucking copyright these designs.
Exactly. Right. And that's the thing that people who support the idea of IP got to ask themselves is, wait, but the clothing industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Why are so many people going into that if IP is necessary in order for you to succeed? It's like, no, because
it's not necessary to succeed.
No yeah,
IP is not necessary to succeed. IP is necessary if you want a monopoly and you want to shut out your competition and keep anybody else from even dreaming of competing with you. That's when IP is necessary.
That's what
government does, and that's why these huge mega corporations only exist because of government. They owe their entire fucking existence to government.
Only Anarchy Among Friends can go from waterboarding to IP.
We're just special like that.
Our train of thought has like that one wheel in the shopping cart. Just spins and spins and spins.
And no matter which
our train of
grab,
thought,
there's always at least one.
Our train of thought goes through the switch station that's operated by a fucking monkey. So
a monkey on cocaine.
Yeah.
Half the train goes that way. The other half goes this way.
He's like, woo-hoo! Can we get them on both tracks at the same time? Let's find out. Yeah, and that is the perfect description of this show.
Well, my kid came out and bothered me, so I missed it.
All right, speaking of monkeys fucking footballs, the Space Force has a horse.
Of course.
Mr.
Ed. No one can talk to a horse, of course.
So, speaking of which, I have Poppins Patches sent me a patch to give away to somebody if they want it. It is Donald Trump as Buzz Lightyear, and it says "Join Space Force today."
But I want to know more.
We're mixing space movies, but that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm trying to collect myself before this first line. In space, no one can hear you neigh.
That's one.
That's one.
By that small moon, that's no moon. That's a horse apple.
Okay.
Comets are no longer the only things in space with tails, you guys.
In space, no one can hear you neigh. It remains somewhat unclear exactly what purpose the newest branch of the American military, the U.S. Space Force, is supposed to serve, but you probably didn't expect this to be one part of their duties.
Well, I can clear that up, just so you know. After we're done with this, I can clear up what its fucking purpose is.
Perhaps we've been viewing the word space all wrong. It just means like wide open spaces, not outer space, and that's where our misinterpretation comes.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean outer space. Actually, it means like like the satellite networks.
Yeah.
So all these elements within the other branches that already handled like satellite networks and targeting satellites and things like that, like the space. I was at Space Command. That's where my husband and I met, was at Naval Space Command. So all of those things have been consolidated into one, and that's what Space Force is.
Did you have a military working horse?
I wish.
Well, besides Kim.
Besides him.
Okay, so the article says, remains somewhat unclear, blah, blah, blah. I expect this to be part of their duties, and it shows a picture of a tweet from the U.S. United States Space Force, blue check mark, and it says, protecting our access to space involves many unique aspects, including welcoming at 30th Space Wing's newest military working horse to their conservation military working horse program. Ghost is a 5-year-old BLM National Mustang.
Well, wait. There,
hold on.
That's
hold
Bureau
on.
of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. No. I just
Bro Lives Matter.
Bronco Lives Matter.
I just want to unpack that sentence.
There you go.
They have, the Space Force has a military working horse conservation program.
So their conservation military working horse program. Yes, well, just the article goes on. Hold on. It says that's
never
right.
underestimate the federal government's ability to spend money on stupid shit.
What?
Yeah, that's right. The U.S. Space Force has horses. No, they're not
Of course.
No, no, they're not going onto orbit or attacking an enemy spaceship. But the actual explanation of why the Space Force has them is almost as absurd.
That's our episode title. Space Force horse, of course.
Of course.
Space Force horse,
I mean, I tell you, when one of those, when Jebediah Yoder lands on Mars to colonize it, he'll be very happy that they had that program. But
Space Force horse.
I mean, maybe they're just like starting a breeding program for when they try to terraform Mars. They're gonna need self-propelling fucking.
They're
gonna be back.
Well, what's that saying now?
For their moon base, you know.
An army marches on its stomach.
Yeah.
Oh, if you're riding a horse, there's your food.
Is this? I'm just picturing like Serenity, where it's like the old West in space.
Yeah.
Plowing and
fucking Firefly
sailing over.
I aim to misbehave.
Nice.
There you go. Actually, this place has some absurd. It says, "Are you ready?" They used to be the Air Force's horses.
Air Force's horse.
Air Force horse.
As the video posted,
horse is the Space Force horse.
Yeah, as the video posted to the Space Force's official Twitter account on Friday explains, the military working horses are part of the 30th Space Wing used at Vandenberg Air Base in California. Prior to the creation of the Space Force, they were part of the conservation program run by the Air Force. Quote, because
the Air Force literally has nothing better to do.
They actually personally attacked.
If you've seen the Space Force logo, it's a blatant ripoff, obviously, the Federation insignia from Star Trek. Yes. And I'm just picturing the brand on the side of this horse. It's like the insignia.
Well, Picard never traveled without his saddle. Does everybody remember?
Yeah,
Picard
that's
never
true.
traveled without his saddle.
That is true. I just hope it doesn't have a red blanket.
It's an engineering horse.
That was a joke set to burn. All right. Quote, we're able to go through creeks and water with the horses, high hills that we wouldn't be able to get through with off-road vehicles. U.S. Air Force Senior Airman Michael Tazazis explained in 2019 profile of the program.
But you're the fucking Air Force, not the mountains and streams force.
Yes. If only the Air Force had the means of getting to places that are difficult for Earthbound people.
If only there was a way.
3. It literally that's exactly what it says right there. You could see air and italics.
Only there was some form of conveyance which would render this difficult terrain a moot point. But I guess there's not, so horses
and
did
if only these people in the Air Force knew about it.
Yeah.
Yes, when the Space Force was created last year, the Air Force conservation program was spun off to the new branch, but the horses will continue to do the same work as before, helping enforce deadly earthbound matters like fish and game laws. Whether they're
Wait, why was the fucking Air Force enforcing fish
because
and
they got
game laws?
nothing better to do.
That's right.
This is
If
not
only
the chair-
somebody would invent something for the Air Force to use occasionally, then they'd have a job. But until then, all right, it's horses and it's wildlife management. Okay, that's all they got.
Don't take that away from them.
Yeah.
Okay.
All we can do is
Hey, and the big question is, when are we getting a horse force?
Horse.
Yeah.
they
These poor horses.
expanded it back.
Charge.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
These
would
poor
definitely-
horses, they're like the fucking Marines. They just live as like a smaller part of something bigger.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I have to say that it would definitely.
Only they're smarter than Marines.
Yeah, they are.
Whether they're air horses or space horses, the real question is why any branch of the military is doing this. Would America's national security be weakened in any measurable way if the Space Force horse were put out to privatize pasture? The last successful
Those
cavalry
horses are critical for national defense.
Let the Bundys have them, damn it.
The last successful cavalry charge in military history occurred more than a decade before the first man-made satellite went to space.
Yep.
The number of horses that have exited the atmosphere is exactly 0, and yet somehow within the
Which
bizarre...
is why they need
If
one.
you don't count the horsepower on Elon Musk's car.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few Branson ponies there.
The number of horses that have exited the atmosphere is exactly 0, and yet somehow within the bizarre labyrinth of bloat and waste at the Pentagon, it has made perfect sense for the Air Force and now the Space Force to have horses.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people forget just how modern the use of horses really is. Remember, during Operation Barbarossa, there was something like 3.5 million horses involved in the German army, which was arguably the most mechanized army on the planet, and they still had 3.5 million horses. Like, that's huge. It was to the point where one of the logistical problems for Barbarossa was that the horses that they used, because they were Central European horses, couldn't handle the cold weather, so they had to start commandeering local Russian horses to be able to move. So, like, if you could picture, like, a pack 40 being
Did you guys
towed
ever
by
see
a
that
horse.
movie? Did you ever see the movie War Horse? That movie, like, ripped my fucking heart out.
That was a hard one to watch, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just, but the idea that, I mean, I guess I could see the argument for, say, the U.S. Army in particular.
Yes.
I don't know,
Yeah.
the Rangers.
Yeah,
who
because
historically, that's exactly what we did.
because they operate like way off grid, and sometimes mechanized fucking transport isn't available or wise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and remember when in 2001, in October, when we went in to deal with the Northern Alliance, we had to ride horses to them. They're all horses are their main transportation.
What's that movie? Chris Helmsworth did it.
Oh yeah. I don't remember what the hell it's called, but
yeah.
Is it called Horse Soldiers? I feel like it's called Horse Soldiers.
No,
something like that. Oh, anyway. In any case, that they had to ride horses, and some of them had never ridden a horse before, so it was a little difficult. Yeah. So I could see, like, maybe having a training program for, like, special operations where you're going to use horses and learn how to care for them and everything else.
Right.
But the Air Force and Space Force cannot possibly justify the need for equine assistance.
Well, not any more than the Navy can.
12 strong.
Yeah, because those are the 12 guys that went in to make a deal with the Northern Alliance, which, for the second time in the Northern Alliance's history, we screwed them on. No, don't worry. I know we totally abandoned you in the 1980s.
That's what we do, though.
Killed.
That's what we fucking do.
You mean you can't trust the U.S. government when it comes to a treaty with an indigenous people?
Gosh, I realized that historically.
Oh my god!
But
historically, we've been so good.
What is it? Hashtag shocked and Trail of Tears.
That just like brought our whole GPA down on this, you know? It like brought our average way down.
So
Yeah, right.
yeah, Space Force horse.
Of course.
The Air Force horse, it's now a Space Force horse, of course.
Yes.
I just want to see someone try to get a horse into a spacesuit.
And I just like, I've got Idiocracy in my head, and like someday there's gonna be a fucking horse force because the military's realigned shit so many times and so stupidly that at some point in the future there actually becomes a fucking horse force.
United
And it's like a
Horse
separate
Command.
branch of the military.
Just wait until they put them into submarines for beach assaults in the future.
Oh god.
What would this the sink horse? Is that what that?
The horse force is going to have its own branch, like of military construction, called the sawhorses.
Sawhorses, CBs, sawhorses.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Mr. Ed, go home.
Well, yeah, and they're like, oh, well, no horse has
Mr. Ed
ever
to the moon.
exited the atmosphere yet.
And then the
Right.
horse force is going to make its own air
we
force.
know of.
Air force.
Yeah,
And we're
it's
going to
gonna
come
wind
full
up-
circle.
You know what's going to happen is it's going to wind up inadvertently going out past the edge of the solar system, and then a few centuries later, it's going to come back at the head of this raging column of aliens who have decided to come liberate the horses, like in Star Trek freaking 4, and it's we're going to have to go back in time.
Yeah, the horse is like its god, and then it tells them how oppressed its people are on our planet.
Isn't that why the Egyptians with the cats?
Yeah.
The aliens like cats.
Yeah, something like that. That's what the aliens guy says.
I'm
He's
not
not
saying it
the
was
guy that-
aliens, but it was the
He's
aliens.
not the guy that gets me the worst on that show. It's that Childress guy who every time he says extraterrestrials, his eyes get like 3 times their normal size. You guys know the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Extraterrestrials. That
he's
guy
got- he's
gets
got
me
a-
every fucking time.
He's got to finish.
Yeah.
He just hopes that he gets anal probed one of these days.
So,
That's
Oh, man.
so
anyway,
fucking stupid.
what's our next article?
I'm just
You know,
disturbed.
it's kind of too bad we're not dealing with the conspiracy article about the big, giant cube UFO around the sun. But
Yeah, I was thinking of that earlier when the Space Force thing came up.
we're gonna do a cavalry
That's why.
charge on the
See?
aliens that came out of the sun with the Space Force horse.
It's the fucking Borg, dude. That thing's a cube. We're about to be assimilated.
You think about it, that's how you beat the Borg, man. You just reject all technology completely. You go back to horses and just sharpen sticks. What are they going to assimilate? There is no technology. Screw you.
Well, I'm just gonna say that like Geordi and Data came up with a way to defeat the Borg. It was that silly screensaver thing that was a paradox. Remember?
Yeah, it's true. That's
Yeah.
or we just
I watched too much fucking Star Trek. My God.
I'm
a
actually
nerd.
watching Discovery right now, and
Yeah.
like, season 2, it's really good. Pike shows back up.
I don't have CBS.
But yeah, it's good. We got it on Amazon Prime as one of the channels specifically, so we'd have Under the Dome and the Star and Picard too. So we're gonna watch Picard after we're done with Discovery.
Oh, I can get it on Amazon.
First 7 days are free.
Nice. Well, I could fucking blast through Picard easy.
Yep.
Because
So
I really wanted to see that one. Because I'm
Yeah,
a huge fucking geek. Just in case people didn't know this about me, I'm a huge geek.
We're all
Obviously.
geeks.
We
Yeah.
all fit into that.
Yeah.
well, the whole reason I started watching is because I started playing that mobile game, the Star Trek Timelines. And it's got a bunch of characters from it. Like it's got like Saru and a few others. And I'm like, who the hell are these people? I'm like, oh, this is from the new one from Discovery. I should watch that.
Dude,
So I
I've been a Star Trek fan since the first episode of Next Generation aired for the first time on television when I
Roger.
was a kid. I've been watching it ever since.
For the millennials listen at home, That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Galaxy far, far away.
Yes.
Somewhere there's a hyper nerd whose eyes just twitching so bad.
Because we mixed fucking Star Trek and Star Wars references.
Use the Force, Harry, said Gandalf.
And it's fucking Magneto. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have to kill the mood. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll find a way to bring it back. I don't care what you fucking throw at us.
Okay, so I'm trying to compose myself a little bit. This shooting in Austin, Texas, they had the protest, and there was the libertarian guy Garrett Foster that was killed.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so there's an article about him. I just want to bring it up because he was an actual, truly consistent libertarian. And article says Garrett Foster, who was shot to death during a downtown Austin protest Saturday night, was remembered as a man dedicated to exercising his Second Amendment rights, stamping out racial injustice, and caring for his fiancée, according to family and friends. The incident leading up to the 28-year-old's death began about 9:50 when a driver on 4th Street honked his horn and turned right onto Congressional Avenue where there was a crowd of protesters. Several protesters, including Foster, who was holding an assault rifle, an AK, he had it.
Yeah, rifles don't commit assault.
Yeah, approached the car. He said the driver reported that Foster pointed the weapon at him. The driver then pointed the handgun out the window, fired multiple shots, and drove away. Someone else in the crowd opened fire on the car as it drove off. First responders performed CPR on Foster, but he died at the medical center an hour after the shooting. No injuries reported. Austin police said they detained the person that fired the fatal shots, and he's cooperated with investigators. He has been released along with the second shooter. Witnesses who attended the protest told the American Statesman that the driver appeared to drive into the crowd and came to a stop when the vehicle hit an orange barrier. The officers also said Foster had his weapon pointed down. Manley, that's the police chief, would not say why the driver was originally at the scene of the protest.
And he was with his fiance at the time. And
who was a
she is wheelchair bound.
She was a quadruple amputee.
Yeah.
Wheelchair bound.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the if you look at the picture, there's a picture floating around of just as the shots start, and from what I can see, his position, he is still sitting at low ready as that gun comes out of the window and starts firing. And every single shot fired is coming from inside the vehicle. So very clearly to me, he was not a threat. It was merely that there was a gun there. He was talking angrily at the driver, and the driver didn't like that and decided to shoot him.
Right.
Yeah.
And because it was an anti-government protest, I guarantee you the driver's going to walk.
Well, yeah, there's the argument to be made that the presence of a gun, crowds surrounding the vehicle, felt threatened. I mean, Texas doesn't have the duty to retreat.
I was gonna say it's fucking Texas, though. I mean, do you expect there not to be any guns in that fucking crowd? If you're afraid of guns, why would you drive into a fucking protest crowd in Texas? Yeah, that person was looking for fucking trouble. They were looking to shoot somebody.
Yes.
Yep. They just needed the excuse.
Yep.
So manufacture one.
Yep.
So what I really wanted to get at, and I'll open this discussion up because I know you guys have all seen it also, is the response to this. Because Garrett was not, quote, on the right. He was not, quote, back in the blue. People are attacking his character. They're attacking his fiance. The lack of humanity
Yep.
And the absolute disregard for this man.
Yep.
It's seriously disheartening.
It is. It is. And we're more accustomed to seeing that from the left.
Oh,
definitely.
Sickening what I've seen from both sides, but
yeah.
Well, that's the level of political rhetoric that we've reached in the United States, where we have spent the past, realistically, since the lead up to the re-election of George W. Bush, we've seen this serious thing
9/11
nonstop.
Since 9/11, really.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it was post 9/11, but I mean, really, like when Bush was running for re-election and you started to really see on both sides, you started to see this trend towards trying to just whip everybody into this frothing frenzy over their politics. And it stayed there all the way through Bush's second term. It stayed there through Obama both terms. It certainly came out like hell in the 2016 election, and it hasn't gone away in the past 4 years. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse.
Is it a coincidence that that's about the same time frame when social media was introduced?
Well, I think, I mean, I definitely think that's part of it, but you see it on TV. You see these major political pundits and talking heads on TV endlessly try and whip people into these horrible frenzies and these yelling, screaming. I mean, look at
that's because it sells. That sells. That gets them those sponsor bucks.
Sensationalization and polarization, yeah. But I want to read part of this one comment on the news article thread.
I was gonna say because like I wonder if people realize how the media gets paid. Do they do they understand where the money comes from to pay the media?
Yeah.
Right.
The comment says Garrett Foster, the Black Lives Matter supporter who was shot and killed last night in Austin, Texas, was interviewed with his AK-47 just an hour before he was shot and killed by the driver of a vehicle. Apparently, this retarded libertarian who was carrying a commie gun in a commie protest in support of a commie movement that's funded by commies, surrounded by other commies, decided to point his gun at the window of a car that was trapped by a swarm of commies. And his stupid ass went down with 3 shots.
That's an interesting way to put it, because I've also heard that car drove into the crowd of protesters looking for trouble.
Well, yeah, and I haven't seen much of the video of it. I know that video exists of some of it, but from the photos of it that I've seen, one, the car was not surrounded by a crowd. There's, I'm going to say 6 people, maybe 8. They're spaced out pretty well. He's certainly the closest one to the vehicle because he walks right up to it and he's standing right there. But the one shot that I saw...
Standing between his fiance and the car.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like he stepped in front of her in the wheelchair, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that if he hadn't walked up that they wouldn't have wound up shooting his fiance in the wheelchair, because again, they were there driving into that crowd, very probably, I don't know for sure, but very probably to try to get someone to attack them so that they could shoot them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's also said that this wasn't like the first protest they were at, blah, blah, blah. Like they had been there like 50 nights in a row or something like that. Always with his AK hanging, always him and her shaking hands and doing their thing, and like they were known to both the police and the protesters.
Yeah. And they had cause to be there. She's black, right? And he's white.
She's black.
So they're an interracial couple.
Uh-huh.
And so they had, they had a very personal reason to be there. So, I mean, and it's fucking America. You're supposed to be able to protest. Yeah. They weren't doing anything wrong.
He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was out there being consistent, intellectually consistent.
And consistent, yes.
So
he paid the ultimate price for it.
This is the photo that I'm talking about. The square is around him where he's standing just before the shots go. And you'll notice that rifle is at low ready.
You have to move it to your left a little, I think. Yeah. There's the square.
That's him in the hat. That's an AK Operators Union hat. And the tan hat there.
And you'll notice where his elbow is. His elbow is here. This is not, I'm about to swing a gun up. This is, the gun is pointing at the ground. I am at low ready. Because I'm approaching a vehicle that is just driven through a bunch of people. And I'm about to talk to them. Of course I'm at low ready.
It's how cops carry their fucking guns when they're approaching somebody that they're not sure they trust.
Exactly. And it's just unfortunate. I mean, and one, I'll say that this is definitely a reason to have a vest and to be wearing it.
It's also the reason to carry first aid gear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, your first aid, you are going to be called upon in an average scenario far, far more often to use your first aid equipment versus to use firearm. I was taught that if you have the ability to take a life, you should also have the ability to save a life.
Yep.
So,
and the first aid kits don't have to be big. I mean, this is a pretty damn good first aid kit, and this is not large.
Little trauma kit.
Yeah, it's got the one thing that I still have to add to this one is an Israeli bandage, but outside of that, it's got everything I need to respond to gunshot trauma. So, that's. You need to have that. You need to be, if you're going to be carrying at a protest, you really should have a plate carrier with plates in. Because if he had level 3 plates...
It makes you a target.
It
makes you a target.
Simply having the gun will make people want to shoot you. Whether that's the police or that's just the anti-protester protesters, they're going to want to try and engage you in a firefight because you have a gun.
Yeah. But let's not confuse that with the liberal argument that just carrying peacefully going about your day will make people want to fucking shoot you. Because that's different. We're talking about in a protest situation where emotions are running high and there's people who literally fucking hate each other's guts on both sides.
Right now, with the hyperpolarization of the issues and the hypersensitivity of both sides, like, you really have to take a step back and assess whether or not going to these protests is like worth it, because people are dying at these protests.
Yeah, and what's being accomplished by these protests, and what specifically is being protested, even give me fucking specifics. Like, what's the exact thing they want changed? And is government the right vehicle to change that? And what are the protests for if they're not protesting government? There's so many fucking unanswered questions here. To me, there's just no fucking useful purpose in going to one of these things.
I think I read there's 37 or 34, 37 states have some sort of Black Lives Matter memorial painted on a road, right? And their state. One state has ended qualified immunity.
Yep. Exactly. It's a lot of, it's just some more lip service and populist.
It's all pandering.
Yeah, and that's all it is. That's all it's ever going to be for the most part. You're not going to achieve anything. I mean, it's the same thing that we said about Virginia and the big begaloo there, where it didn't actually change anything. All of Northam's bullshit still happened.
9 of the 10 gun control bills were
Northam's bullshit is getting worse by the fucking day.
And they did all that protesting, all that armed protesting while cooperating with authorities. And look at what happened. Nothing happened. All you did was you got some headlines for a couple of days, and then that was it.
And they were upheld by the court.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that there's any significant alternatives or anything that people should really consider. But
well, my preferred alternative is just mass civil fucking disobedience. Just stop fucking doing what they say. Stop paying them their fucking taxes and fees and fines. Just fucking stop. Just ignore them. I mean, eventually, maybe if enough people do it, it'll make some kind of fucking impact.
I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. Imagine if just 25% of the American taxpayers changed all of their W-4s to exempt.
See,
Right.
here's the thing, though. They don't want to change government. They want to control government.
Yes.
Well, what's the best way to control something? The best way to control
Financially.
something is to cut off the freaking the finances.
Guys,
That was not the direction I was going to go, but okay.
They just punched. This is like 3 times this year that they've punched keys on a keyboard and created $6 trillion.
Yeah.
Right?
And none of it's in change. God damn it.
Not printed. They didn't print anything.
No, they
punched keys on a keyboard and made $6 trillion.
Yep.
Not paying your taxes isn't going to stop the government.
No, I
That
know.
won't
I
even
just
change
I mention
anything.
it. I mention it as like one way to fucking ignore them and stop obeying them.
Oh,
That's like
agorism is absolutely one of the wheels on the hub. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a component, but the reality is if you just try to ignore them, eventually they might deal with it for a little bit, but eventually they will turn violent against you. And at that
Right,
point,
that's
you will
why I'm
need to
saying-
be violence with violence.
Oh
right,
yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
why I said it has to be a lot of fucking people doing it.
Yeah, Andrew
You know.
and I are very Brandenburg v. Ohio on the subject.
Well, yeah. No matter how you slice it, even if you try to go for the so-called purse strings out of the gate, like Andrew said, they're going to turn around and they're going to come after, even if it's not just you, they're going to pick a few people out of the herd and go, okay, we're going to make an example out of you, and you. And
Yep.
all of those people that went through with the mass civil disobedience need to then step up to the plate
And say, we're not
and-
going to allow you to do this to them.
exactly.
Well, I mean, we can. This I will not call this a civil rights movement because that's not what it is. But comparing it to the civil rights movement and the violence of the civil rights movement and all that, I think is a legit comparison. And one of the aspects of the civil rights movement that a lot of people didn't ever learn is that there were the 2 major factors in the civil rights movement were Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right?
Right.
Malcolm X and his people were separatists. They wanted their own way. They were very violent.
Yes.
Martin Luther King and his people were very peaceful. And in the famous letter from the Huntsville, Alabama jail that Martin Luther King wrote, he literally told the government, you can work with me, the clean-cut Christian, or you can keep fucking with those people. And the government like, hey, MLK, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
Talk to
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
And
Well, yeah.
that's how this is going to end. Is there's going to be another group, or it's going to be a piece of that group that the government is going to be like, hey, let's talk appeasement, let's negotiate, we'll do
Right.
this and this and that and this. It's not really going to change anything,
Right.
but it will look good on the surface because we can't keep having that.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and that's,
Right.
I mean, and remember, I mean, that letter, I mean, what he says is, look, if you aren't willing to deal with those of us who are being peaceful,
Mhm.
you are going to wind up creating that many more people who are violent, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to control it. And
Right.
so they went, okay, well, we'll deal with the peaceful people. It's exactly the same kind of thing, except it went the other direction that you had in Ireland in the late 40s heading into the 50s, where Sinn Féin really tried, the political arm of the IRA really tried to work politically with the British government and work very politically in Ulster to try and get it to become part of Ireland peacefully and through political process. And when that didn't work and kept not working, that was when the army just kept building and turned into what they ultimately became, especially in the 50s, where they're still an organized military force that also stole an entire garrison's worth of machine guns.
The difference between the IRA and what is happening now is the IRA was winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were cohesive.
Mhm.
They had a fucking mission. Like they had a cohesive culture,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, yeah, and they did. the thing, they're notoriously factional now, but
right. Well, that's why I said had.
Yeah, if you talk to some of the old guys that were part of the army back in the 50s and things, a lot of them will tell you that they completely understand why what ultimately happened in the 80s and the 90s up until Good Friday, what they understand why that happened. That they won't condone the methods or anything else, or at least the alleged methods, but they won't condone those. But they completely understand why, because they had tried to only hit military targets and only focus on military targets and do things that's organized military way, and that still didn't work because the Irish government kept trying to hold them back.
Yeah.
Sinn Féin kept trying to hold them back, and they're like, and ultimately because of that, this was inevitable. The less you deal with people who are even still a little violent, but trying to be as peaceful as they can be, if you don't deal with them, you create what would ultimately happen.
Right.
When you have people who are lobbing improvised shells out of an improvised mortar at the British House of Parliament.
Yeah, well, the more you dismiss reasonable people, the less fucking reasonable they become. I mean, it's
there has to be you can't discuss with reasonable people if you're not reasonable yourself.
Right, exactly.
Right? Well, the government itself is not reasonable.
Right.
The politicians are not reasonable. So
exactly,
it's inevitable. It was absolutely inevitable that what is currently happening was going to happen, right?
Yep.
I mean, we've seen you can even call them skirmishes or whatever before now, like all the way going back to like 2014 with Oscar Grant and Tamir Rice and all these other people that like there were protests. Like Oakland is like literally famous for having these protests, like going all the way back to the Occupy movement.
Yeah.
So what's happening now?
Well, there's like the Rodney King riots, and
that was 1992.
Yeah, but I mean, like Sublime wrote a fucking song about it, about all the riots. You know?
You could go further back than that and talk about the MOVE bombing in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Detroit race riots, the what's the other one? Well, Ferguson recently and all of that.
The Stonewall riots in New Jersey.
Yeah, but it's becoming more like pressure sensitive. You know, it's like the pressure plate got heavier because the smaller things are setting it off each time.
Yep.
And so it seems to be escalating.
Pretty soon it's going to hit critical mass.
I was going to say, this whole thing is becoming a gigantic powder keg.
Yep.
Well, and that was, I mean, and it was the same thing. What we're kind of seeing politically is the exact same stuff that you saw in the antebellum U.S. leading up to the American Civil War, where the rhetoric just got nastier and nastier and nastier and more divisive. And there's this bigger and bigger rift and a complete lack of center until it exploded. And states secede from the Union, start seizing military arms. They bomb Fort Sumter, like all of a sudden. And for the most part, like even leading up to that point, there was almost hope for a lot of people that it wouldn't come to that. I mean, until there was literally actually shots being fired. But you look at that, and there were the riots in Baltimore when they tried to move federal troops through Baltimore, and they got attacked by these rioters and like actually shot at and things by regular people in a state that never even seceded.
Right.
They still got attacked, and that was before the war actually started. Before.
And eventually the powder keg goes off, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have to die, all because 530 whatever people refused to fucking listen. People whose job it literally is to fucking listen refuse to fucking listen.
Representatives.
Yeah.
Written in the fucking SpongeBob font.
All because they refuse to listen.
So, but speaking of the Civil War, I have to bring this up because I posted about it the other day. The 25th was the anniversary of the United States Congress passing the Crittenden-Johnson Resolution in 1861, which stated that the war was being fought to preserve the Union and not to end slavery.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the Civil War wasn't
dare
about.
they?
Yeah,
How dare they walk away from us? But you're free to leave if you don't like it.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, oh yeah, the Civil War wasn't fought over slavery; it was fought over states' rights. States' rights to what again?
Yeah.
What was the issue that they wanted?
Yeah.
Slavery. It was slavery.
Oh.
They were okay. Yeah, no.
yeah. So we did all that because I want to get into this one about Seattle. Seattle police chief sends simple message to business owners during riots. You're on your own.
Yep.
She goes full CJW in here, which is, cop justice warrior.
Yeah.
Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best told local businesses Friday that due to the new city council regulations, the police won't intervene in the event of more riots. Quote, please also know that the city council ordinance 119805 crowd control tools goes into effect this weekend on Saturday, July 26, 2020. This ordinance bans Seattle police officers the use of less lethal tools, including pepper spray, that is commonly used to disperse crowds that have turned violent.
Because they were doing so much during the riots.
Yeah,
before.
That's a letter addressed to businesses and residents in the city. Best argued that this has resulted in her officers having, quote, no ability to safely intercede to preserve property in the midst of a large, violent crowd.
Now, I'm not saying that this is a necessity or anything like that, but hey, Seattle business owners, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. But here's what really concerns me about this. They ban the use of the less lethal or non-lethal intervention methods. And then they're pulling back and saying, you're on your own. And then people are going to scream for the cops to come back.
Yep.
Meanwhile, those non-lethal methods are still banned. What do the cops have left at their disposal?
Guns.
Only the lethal fucking methods.
More of if you have a hammer and that's all you have.
Yeah.
Or, and Trump has already talked about this.
Federal.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll really help.
And then
the Fed boys are running around Seattle like a fucking press gang, snatching people off the fucking street in unmarked vans.
Yep. On Thursday, Bess also informed the city council that she believes it has hamstrung the Seattle police and that she will have to avoid crowd control measures in the future in the interest of officer safety.
Protecting and serving. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Bess noted that the city remains under attack. Quote, it is a fact that there are groups of individuals who are intent on the destruction of our city. Yes, we also have seen weeks of peaceful demonstrations, but two recent events have included wide-scale property destruction and attacks on officers, injuring more than a dozen, some significantly.
We're so heroic that we're terrified at the idea that we might get hurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
With more demonstrations anticipated, the police chief anticipates that the city will, quote, continue to experience property destruction, arson, looting, and attempts to injure additional officers throughout the weekend and beyond.
Hey, speaking of Seattle, has anyone heard anything about Tofu Dishu recently?
The what?
Tofu Dishu, Chaz.
Oh,
Somalia.
Nice.
Oh, that was dismantled and torn down.
Yeah, that's been torn apart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't paying attention for a while, so.
Yeah.
You know what hasn't been torn apart yet? Free dairy. Bite me.
Best insisted that deploying the police, quote, under these circumstances as created by the council, we cannot manage demonstrations as we have in the past. If I am not allowed to lawfully equip officers with the tools they have been trained to use to protect the community and themselves, it would be reckless to have them confront this level of violence under the current legal restrictions imposed by the council.
Yeah.
Heroic as fuck.
Yeah. And I gotta wonder if the council did that because the cops were fucking begging to not have to go back out there.
Probably.
Yeah.
Good
Okay,
chance,
well,
Yes.
we'll say that you can't use less lethal, which means that then you have an excuse to not go.
Yeah, your hands are fucking tied. Dude.
Seattle is already in the process
good,
of
bro.
defunding its police force by cutting its budget by 50%. The city is also reportedly planning to shut down its county jail, which currently incarcerates about 60% of the prison population.
How about you just stop fucking throwing people in jail for shit that didn't hurt anybody?
Wait. I have a follow-up article. Seattle radio host who mocked Trump's reaction to protests now says he needs a gun after Starbucks below his apartment is trashed.
Not the Starbucks!
Yeah, Paul Gallant has a new perspective on violent protests after mocking President Donald Trump in June for saying anarchists were burning and pillaging Seattle. All it took was for the mayhem to
mock
come.
him for that. But
Yeah,
not for the same reason.
Yeah, all it took was for the mayhem to come near the talk show host home. Quote, I feel like I need to buy a firearm because this is clearly going to keep happening.
Another fucking ivory tower fucking liberal
Yep.
who thinks they know best until the shit fucking ends up right on their fucking doorstep in a flaming paper bag.
Yep, and suddenly, all of the sudden, now that he realizes that cops maybe can't protect his white privileged ass, now suddenly, I should get a gun.
Gosh. Yeah. And I'd like to know how, like, what his position on gun control has been forever. Like, since, you know what I mean? I'd really
if his gun control position is anything like a friend of mine, who I won't give any more information other than the fact that they live in Minneapolis. And when the National Guard and the police were going down the street, they live like 2 houses away from the people that got shot on their front porch.
Oh, jeez.
And they're like, well, they called me up the day after that happened. And we're like, so what would you recommend?
And like, how they felt about guns before that?
Before that, they were like, oh, we need an assault weapons ban. We need to limit handgun capacities down to 5 rounds. It's like, what? Now all of a sudden, should I buy
an how many times did they fucking vote for somebody to impose that bullshit on everybody?
Oh, they were the type of people that were all gung-ho about Tim Waltz and Ilhan Omar, whatever the hell her name is. And every last one of them, they're like, oh, these are the people that are going to fix everything. Yeah, look what their policies have brought you. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's almost like, I mean, you could wish somebody might have been trying to tell you this whole time that you might need a fucking gun someday and these policies are a bad idea. If only there were, like, you know, a couple million people, a couple dozen million people saying exactly fucking that you could have heard and listened to.
Well, you know, and it's like that meme about the thing where, you know, if you have friends who were formerly anti-gun that, you know, voted for people who are anti-gun that now suddenly are asking you, because of all these riots and things, if they can get one of your ARs from you, just let them know. I'll send thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm sorry, I can't transfer a firearm to you without a background check because of the shit that you fucking voted for.
Yep.
So.
But I'll send you thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget that 10-day waiting period.
Yeah.
Don't forget magazine capacity restrictions.
Yep. And of course, you can only have 10 rounds in your mag, which means that, you know.
No. 10 rounds in your gun.
Yeah, you can't go 10 plus 1. It's 10 total.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, because 10 plus 1 is a felony.
Yeah.
Because 11 rounds is dangerous, but only 10.
Safe
you better hope
that 7.
You better hope that the violent rioters are sticking with social distancing guidelines and don't have any groups larger than 10. You really better fucking hope.
Yeah, and you know, and you got all those the leftists and the left-wing states that are doing stuff like that, like Jason's, and meanwhile, I got
Andrew's picking up a gun. Oh, mags.
40s, nice.
Those look like 40s.
Yep, I got a pair of 40s that are fully loaded right now sitting here. So, Although I actually, now that I've started using them, I think I'm just going to stick to 30s because I honestly don't really like them. They're too big.
The 40s are too long, and it impairs your ability to go prone because it
Exactly.
sticks up too
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So now that I've confirmed that no, I cannot in fact find an easy way around that. Yeah, no, we're just going to stick to either a D60, which is $160 mag, or we're just going to go with 30s, which I can buy for like $12. You know.
What about drums? Get yourself one of those fucking drums.
Well, that's a D60. Yeah, they're about $160 each.
I didn't know that.
Speaking of the D60s, Andrew, our favorite gun shop got a handful of those in Friday afternoon. When I went in at 2:00 in the afternoon on Saturday, they were all gone.
Damn it, you had me all excited for a second too, because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get." Never mind.
Save the 40s for when Biden goes in January. Starts talking about gun control. You can make a truck payment on what you can sell those 240s for.
Probably. Well, if I still had a truck payment, my truck is paid off, thankfully. But yeah.
You know what I meant. But
I have to take mine into the body shop tomorrow. It's gonna be in there for 4 fucking days. So I'm gonna have a rental during that time. But
oh darn, is it gonna be a Ferrari?
No, it's gonna be another full-size SUV. They were like, we have like.
That's not worth bragging about.
Yeah, they were like, we have like Nissan Armadas and stuff, and I was like, okay, cool. I don't fucking care. Like, I don't care. Like, you could give me a fucking minivan. I don't give a shit. I just need to get around for 4 days while my Lincoln's in the shop. God.
But have you never heard of an Armada, Andrew?
No, I hadn't. Is it a big SUV? Is that what it is?
Oh yeah, it's like Ford Expedition size SUV.
Yeah.
I love the really hopeful names for these things, like Armada, Expedition, Excursion. You know, like it's the battleship group.
What I'm taking into the shop is a Lincoln Navigator. So
Navigator.
Yeah. And Lincoln's smaller SUV is called the Aviator.
Yeah, I know. That's
and does it have horses?
The Aviator is just like a freaking Escape.
I was gonna say it's a luxury Escape, and the Navigator is just a luxury
Expedition.
Exploder.
Yeah.
Oh, is it an Expedition?
Yeah.
I thought it was an Exploder.
No.
All right.
No.
So
Lincoln doesn't have an Exploder.
I don't know how we went from riots to cars, but
because you got to have some armadas to deal with them. See, you bring in an armada of armadas.
Andrew was talking about his truck.
Parking tickets covered by 8th Amendment's ban on excessive fines, a federal court ruled.
Well, I mean, we could fit just about everything under that.
Yeah.
Somebody that we all know, somebody that I think that we're all friends with on Facebook. I'm not going to name names though. But they're dealing with a DUI that is going to cost them $20,000 fucking dollars in fees and fines and court costs and all that kind of shit.
Yep.
How is that okay? Like, the average American has no way to fucking pay that with any kind of comfort. Like, that's the kind of shit you lose your house over.
So, well, I mean,
a good friend of mine,
$8.41. So.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say a good friend of mine.
Low bar.
A good friend of mine got a DUI over in Minnesota, and see, here in Wisconsin, I think it's your first 2 aren't considered crimes.
That's because it's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Is it right?
Yeah, we have people with like 10th or 12th convictions regularly.
But over there, your first one is absolutely a misdemeanor, and it took him, what did he say? It was something like $8,000. And that was only because he opted not to fight any of it.
Yeah. Right. And this person, their BAC was like the absolute lowest it could be for them to still pop him for a fucking DUI. Yeah. It was like a, not that big a fucking deal.
All right. In a decision that managed to cite both the La La Land and the Magna Carta, the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Wednesday that parking tickets and fees must comply with an Eighth Amendment ban on excessive fines. Although the ruling is only a partial victory for Angelino drivers in this case, it nevertheless clears the path for others to challenge municipal fines as unconstitutional.
Yes.
Quote, the right to be free from excessive government fines is not a relic relegated to a period of parchments and parliaments, but rather it remains a crucial bulwark against government abuse. That is, Judge Kenneth Lee wrote for the court. He's also said, the government cannot overstep its authorities and impose fines on its citizens without paying heed to the limits imposed by the Eighth Amendment.
Okay, but they do all day, every fucking day.
I was gonna say, if it's a bulwark, it's a pretty shitty bulwark.
Yeah, it's fucking.
In Los Angeles, overstaying in a parking spot occurs a $63 fine, with
It's
over
like what's left of Hadrian's Wall.
Los Angeles overstaying in a parking spot incurs a $63 fine, with over 70% of the fine funneled to the city's coffers. But if a driver fails to pay the fine promptly, the city tacks on penalties for late payments as well as registration and collection fees, which can balloon to $181, nearly triple the original fine amount.
Well, yeah,
ridiculous.
I mean, that's how. And what's the cost of the average meter, like for an hour?
I don't know.
It's got to be what, like $1.50, something like that.
Something like that
for like an hour. Think of that's a several $1,000% increase to go to $180.
Like it would be, if you really think about it, even them charging you 3 times what you owe them for that parking would probably be excessive. Like twice the amount. One what you owe and like another $1.50 punitive, whatever, like that. That's like in dealings with other human beings, private individuals, that would be like more than just recompense.
Well, yeah, and you want to talk about setting up a separate class of citizen, because the rich can go, oh, it's going to cost me $200 if I park here, cool, and then they'll park there. Because they'll just pay the $200 and they don't care. So all you're actually doing is guaranteeing that they get to operate in a completely different way.
Yeah, you're just designating rich people parking.
Right.
Yeah.
That's I don't remember who wrote the article, but I read an article a little while ago was specifically mentioning having ridden with a rich friend in their like really expensive car, and they parked in like right out in front of this hotel, and the guy's like, well, there's no parking here, there's a $200 fine. He's like, nah, it just means it costs $200 to park here, that's cool. And they go inside. He just doesn't care because well, he'll just pay it. That's nothing. $200, whatever, it might as well be $1. He doesn't care. So they get to operate on a completely different level. It's the same thing with DUIs. It's the same thing with every criminal charge that imposes fines. The rich don't care because they can pay them.
Yep. The rich don't even care about criminal activity, really, because they can pay the best fucking lawyers. And they can contribute to political campaigns.
Well, yeah. Look at each.
And actually, Andrew, going along with what you said, I have a personal experience with that. A friend of mine that I went to high school with, his parents bought him a brand new, I wouldn't say it was a high-end car, but it was a mid-level, German car. And we were cruising on the interstate between Sparta and La Crosse at 120 miles an hour. He got pulled over just past West Salem overpass. You know exactly where I'm talking about.
Yep, I've been pulled over there like 3 times.
Right.
I still haven't learned that stupid unmarked purple Magnum sits there with the lights inside the tinted windows. So you can, every freaking time, man.
Yep. And he got pulled over. It was a $600 ticket. He wrote the cop a check on the spot.
Yeah,
because he didn't care. Because they get to play by different rules. They get to play by completely different rules. Look at the guys who run HSBC. Remember where it was determined that they had knowingly and intentionally laundered money for ISIS, and the response of the American criminal courts was, well, but they're just too important in their positions in the bank to jail, so we can't. They're literally saying that you can be too rich to be able to be jailed.
Yep. Too big to fail.
They'll take your house for $8.41.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're poor.
Yeah, if you're poor.
I would also like to point out while we're on the topic that, shit, I lost my train of thought.
I was just sitting over here wondering if Space Force horses eat space food.
Space grass.
Freeze-dried oats.
Freeze-dried oats. There you go.
Freeze-dried grass.
Hey, I've been smoking some space grass tonight.
Are you orbiting Saturn right now?
No, just Jupiter. Yeah.
You can do better.
It's not that good because I can only get black market shit here, so I got to take what I can get. But
too far from Colorado.
Yep. She's going to Oregon. What are you guys talking about?
My sister owns a fucking cannabis dispensary. My little brother works there and he gets samples all the time, so I never pay for anything when I'm there because he doesn't smoke flower. He does dabs, but he gets flower as like part of his like samples, the little goodie bags that all the employees get. And he'll have like 4 or 5 different bags of shit for me to try when I get there. So
sounds rough.
Yeah,
it's
rough.
Terrible.
It really is.
She'll need it after driving cross country with kids.
You got a cannonball run it.
Yeah.
Cannonball run it.
Yup.
I can just see Derek in the Navigator doing 110 down the interstate, weaving in and out of traffic.
With the kids in the back on their fucking Nintendo Switches, not even paying attention.
No, I could just see it. They're playing on their Switches, and every time she changes lanes, like,
yep.
Not even
with their headphones on. Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
I need gas off ramp. Whee!
Drifting.
I got a peek. Dirk can change his lanes. I don't have to So.
Always maintain a nice stack of coffee cans for those cross country trips.
Yeah, well, I have better. Okay, I am experienced with little boys in my car. I'm doing this with my 4 sons. Okay, we take Hawaiian Punch bottles because they have that lid that screws on really tight and it's watertight.
Yep.
Right, the ones with the handle on them, so they're easy to pick up and dump out. Yeah,
that's what always with us was the Gatorade bottles because they got the wide top.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Some of us don't fit in the Coke can.
I fucking know what I'm doing with little boys in my car.
And you're privileged. The rest of us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel privileged now. Like I actually had to get out of the vehicle to pee. Like,
when I was about 5 or 6, we ended up going down to northern Arkansas to visit family. And while we're going through St. Louis, I was like, I gotta pee. My dad throws me his Pepsi bottle. Here.
Yep.
You'll figure it out.
I mean, sometimes you're just like stuck in fucking gridlock. And the kids have to pee and there's just no way for them to get out of the car and do it. So
and it was 2:00 in the morning and I had one sister on this side and one sister on this side. So
just pull your dick out.
Whatever.
I have nothing to add after that.
Yeah.
I had to do that in traffic outside of Coral City, Iowa. I was stuck in gridlock traffic and had to piss so bad I was seriously gonna piss my pants. And I'm like, look over and there's a lady in the car right next to me, and I'm like, whatever, I don't even care. I just started peeing and I'm just sitting there and she just kind of looks over and like makes eye contact with me and like, okay, this is very awkward.
That's fucking male privilege that you guys can do that.
Hey,
but I got myself one of those fucking shiwi type things for like nasty bathrooms at gas stations and shit, you know.
My wife uses those for when we go deer hunting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we going along with that, actually, we went down to Arkansas about 5 years ago again, visiting family, and oh Lord, our last day there, they got like a foot of ice. to the point where they were closing interstates, calling the National Guard out, driving people off the interstate in tanks and armored personnel carriers. Meanwhile, while everybody else is going like 5 miles an hour down the interstate, here we are with our Wisconsin plates, 45, right down.
See you later. Well, to be fair, the only reason they're using the APCs in the tanks because it was the only thing that could get any fucking traction on the ice. So they're like, this is probably the safest thing.
Yeah.
But then we got stuck in Gridlock just below the Missouri border there. And I'm like, my son's in the back seat. I gotta pee. I'm like, so do I.
Yeah.
We're sitting there and look over, and traffic going the other direction. There's nobody there. So like, perfect. There's a median right there and a shrub. Tommy, hop out. Go.
Just run.
Let's go over there. We're not going anywhere.
What's that kid doing? Oh, Jesus.
Yep. I don't have anything to add. You guys got anything else before we get out of here?
Buy my book.
Buy Derica's book. Use
Yep.
Andrew's beard discount.
Yep. Inked Anarchist 15 at the beard
Use
struggle.
Andrew's beard. Hey, ladies, use Andrew's beard.
Yep.
It's better than a shiwi.
No.
Andrew likes his golden showers.
I'm right. Like you
guys went a totally different direction than I was thinking.
Oh, come on. We always go that direction. We didn't have any sexual conduct this episode.
That's the direction I was trying to go, though, because I used Kevin's beard earlier today, if you know what I'm saying.
You decide you wanna do the golden shower thing. I imagine that meme where
God, stop! It doesn't have to be this cat thing, you guys. Oh my God.
Fades into O.J. Simpson putting the glove on. Like
we're off of pee now. Jesus, we're off of pee.
Still talking about. We were just talking about pee for an extended period of time. Why are you surprised? That's immediately where we go.
I'm not. Like I said, I've been raising boys for fucking 18 years. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, you were in the military also, so I mean.
Yeah.
So anyway, on that note,
Patch, if you want it, this one is going to be an actual giveaway again. So like our page on Facebook, like Poppins Patches on Facebook, and share this episode, the post with it.
Trump Lightyear.
Yes, you can get Trump Lightyear.
Fucking
Trump Lightyear, yeah. So
Scuzz Light Beer.
Also in the golden shower. So anyway, this has been episode 99. Thank the local Space Force horse for his service, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Later.
Peace.